welcome everybody to another episode of Rubbin' is Racing. I'm your host, Mr. CJ Sports. With me in the studio, as always, my co-host, Steve Big Sweat Billmeyer. How you doing tonight, Steve?
I'm finer in hands, Steve, tonight.
Oh, my goodness. Who would have thought an all-star race would have so much talk, well, at least a format of the race anyway. And it was funny because the format, honestly, I didn't think it all the way through how much of a confusion and how much talk was going to be about it. As a matter of fact, last week, I think the only thing I really got into depth was that segment where we didn't know if there was going to be 9, 10, or 11 drivers that were going to be allowed to have 4 tire changes or going to be mandatory to have 4 tire changes, and the rest of the field was not going to be allowed to. And I thought that was kind of weird, and I was kind of confused on how that was going to play out, which fortunately for NASCAR, it's the least of their concerns because it only left 2 people high and dry out there. With everything else that went on, but it seems that there was a lot more confusion Saturday than NASCAR should have ever allowed, and of course we're going to talk about the confusion, and unfortunately, I think 2 drivers with all this confusion and all this talk about the format are missing out on the spotlight that they rightfully deserve. One, obviously, Joey Logano winning the race and
Yep.
being $1 million, excuse me, $1 million richer. But even more, Kyle Larson. I think we're overlooking what Kyle Larson laid out on the track and what should be talked about, because Kyle Larson drove his butt off Saturday and
Yep.
really put on a show for the fans.
Yeah, he did, and the fans are saying about him, he can't win, he can't close the deal, he can't keep from wrecking, da-da-da-da-da. I mean, hell, that's the driver I want in my race car.
Yeah.
Gets down to 10 laps to go, and you're bouncing it off the wall trying to catch the leader. Hell yeah, I want him in my car. Got nothing to do with him not being able to drive or not being able to close the deal. The dude is so much emotion in his racing and wants to win so bad that it's not a question of if he'll win, it's just when is he going to win.
Oh, yeah.
When is he not going to have that little late in the race miscue bouncing off the wall? When's he not going to have that where luck's going to go his way and he's going to run that leader down?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just don't understand people complaining about his driving ability and everything, other than they're the people that need to remember that it doesn't matter how good a lap Kyle Larson runs, he's still lapping your ass sitting on the couch.
And not only that, the showdown race that he beat and banged with Chase Elliott to get into the actual All-Star race. I mean, it was crazy, and how they managed to fit that race without wrecking each other is beyond me. But I mark my words. Once that Kyle Larson, that 42 team, and Chip Ganassi figure out how to put that car in victory lane, it is going to be real scary for the rest of NASCAR, because it's not going to be, wow, they found themselves in victory lane once. We're going to be talking about Kyle Larson week after week after week once they figure it out. Once all those pieces of that puzzle fall into place, it is going to be hard for anybody to shake up what that 42 team's got going on.
Exactly, and if you doubt what CJ just said, look at Jeff Gordon. Look at how much stuff he tore up his first year before he started winning. But once he started winning, look where he is now. Look what he became.
Now, NASCAR kind of hurt my feelings this week, because up until this point, we talked about, we might not see the big picture of the changes right away. It might even take a year before, once these cars come back around to the same tracks, that they did previous year to see if the changes they made was really good and really benefited the drivers in the sport. And 99 out of 100 times, yes, they do. There's one blue moon that, yeah, what was you thinking? But usually, a race down the road, 3 weeks down the road, a year down the road, whatever the case may be, we finally reap the benefits of the decision that NASCAR made and the changes they had made. This weekend was not one of them. There was a lot of confusion. People didn't know laps down, when should they pit, why cars are not back on the lead lap, did not get the drive around. I did reports that Tony Stewart is in the clear. He is not be fined for his comments once again. That was my first thought is, oh God, goes Tony Stewart. He is going to catch him another fine. But that's the reports I've been lately. What was your thoughts while you were sitting here watching this all unfold Saturday night?
My original thought was it was really screwed up. That they made a bad choice, a bad decision to go with this format and everything. By the time the race ended, my opinion was, this was a pretty good deal. There's so many different scenarios and possibilities that it's really putting the crew chief and the driver and the team in position to make calls out of the box to take a chance on something and to pull something off that'll get you a win. I thought I even made the comment on the race thread after the first segment that Jason Ratcliffe needed to be replaced because he put Matt in a bad position after the pit stop. And then I got to thinking about it, and I went, that's pretty damn smart, really. I said, he knew there were no other cars lapped down. So if he didn't pit in the allotted time, NASCAR was going to take a lap away from him. Well, so what? If it's right there at the end of the segment, he's going to be the only car lap down. So he's going to get his lap back. He's going to get 4 fresh tires. So, originally I thought he had screwed up, and then I realized, well, he made a pretty good call. And then it became apparent he made a really good call because NASCAR hadn't even thought of this scenario. I mean, I'm probably in the minority saying this, but I really think that format will work. I like the way it puts more of the race responsibility in the hands of the driver and crew chief. It's like, I forget how many years ago it was, NASCAR decided you had to make a green flag pit stop before, well, it was the end of the race, the last segment. You had to do a 4-tire stop under green. Well, Frankie Stoddard, who was Jeff Burton's crew chief then, when it came time to pick, pit selection, he picked the pit stall adjacent to the start-finish line in the pits. So they didn't pit until the white flag lap, and they were so far ahead of everybody else that had pitted, the other people couldn't catch him. And all he had to do was come in, put 4 tires on, and just pull forward like 5 feet, and he crossed the start-finish line and won the race. It's stuff like that to me makes racing exciting, is when you get a crew chief or a driver or a team that can get around the rule and beat them at their own game. And I just think if NASCAR sticks with this format, that's where that format is headed.
Now, I know there was a lot of confusion with the 6 cars. I think there were 6 cars that were on the end of the lead lap and didn't get to, do the wave around because they didn't have that. Do you think that part of it maybe should be there should be some kind of modification? Because it just seems like there was a lot of confusion, especially that part of it.
I wonder if NASCAR made it clear before the race or in the driver's meeting and something as to whether they were going to allow wave arounds or not. And I think that might have been the problem. Maybe NASCAR just didn't make that clear to the teams. And, that's another way, to get over on that format. Go ahead and take, if it's more than one car a lap down, go ahead and take the chance of pitting anyway and getting the wave around. I mean, it's the same thing. You're going to put it back with your 4 fresh tires. So I just, I was still kind of confused about that. I don't really understand why that happened. I think maybe NASCAR didn't see this possibility or didn't explain exactly what the procedure was going to be to teams.
I think the other thing that I took away from it, and I guess this format wouldn't have been such of an issue if the drivers, to me, weren't so confused. I think that is the part that kind of has me thinking about this format, because I can understand the fans being confused, and I can understand the casual person watching it being confused. But when you have your product out there and they have no idea what's going on and seem to be confused, that's where I start questioning what was NASCAR thinking. Maybe not so much the format, but at least making sure that your drivers, your products, your key players out there at least understood how this should go. And it just seemed that, I don't know, there was lack of communication. It just didn't trickle down to them. But it just seemed that the drivers were out there lost on what was going on and when things were going on and how things were supposed to be going on.
Yeah, I understand that, but the bottom line is it's basically not the driver's worry to wonder about stuff like that. I mean, he's just supposed to drive the car. It's not up to him to figure out what position he's in or when to pit or anything. That's the crew chief and engineers department. That's their job, because they have the ability. There's a NASCAR official right there by the pit box on one side of or the other. They can ask a question and find out immediately the answer to that question. Well, there's nothing the driver can do about it. I mean, he can't stop, get out, and go ask NASCAR what's going on. So I think it was Greg Ives, maybe not, maybe another crew chief. Anyway, one of them has finally told his driver, just shut up and drive. There's nothing we can do about it now. And that would have kind of been my attitude, too. I mean, I understand the driver wanting every bit of information and know everything that's going on, but unless you're a driver like Alan Kulwicki was, you can't use this information. You can't comprehend it all and use it to help win the race. Kulwicki, we used to listen to him on the radio, and he'd be running green flag laps, racing 3 abreast and stuff, and figuring tire stagger out at the same time. I mean, most people's minds won't separate like that, but he could. And unless you can do that, just drive. Let the crew chief handle it.
Most definitely. I don't know. It was just a crazy. I don't know. Just watching it, and let me backtrack. There was a third thing I think that was overlooked when we talk about this weekend as well, and that was the racing on the track. Charlotte is a hop and skipping away from me, and so it's always been a track that has been very convenient for me to go to and be able to go to watch. An hour and a half, 2-hour drive at most, right there. And so I've gone many, many, many times to Charlotte, but I'm not going to say that it's my favorite track to go to, nor do I think at times that it's got the best action out there. There's been many races that the field has been spread out so far that it just kind of followed the leader throughout the whole race, and unless somebody blows a motor, blows a tire or something, it kind of goes that way for almost the whole race, if not the whole race. But watching Saturday, especially with this, this package, there was a lot more racing and it was a lot more interesting to watch outside of the confusion of the format. And I think that's another thing that has been overlooked. And with all the fans blowing up Facebook and social media and talking about NASCAR and talking about this format and just a displeasure that we've both seen all day long, I think the big picture out of this that people should be taking away from him is just an all-star race. It's not one of the 36 races and is not going to implicate a champion or anything else. I think the big picture everybody's looking at is what we get to see next weekend at the 600 now. Now we got to get a good idea what tire Goodyear's bringing, what this package is doing at Charlotte, and everything else that goes into what we're going to see next weekend. I think that's what the big picture should be about and what people should be focused on.
Exactly. What you're seeing now, what you're seeing now is the track changing back to a driver's track. Did just a couple of years ago, it was all about aero, and aero would do wonders for you. And still, at Charlotte, clean air is definitely an advantage. Being the leader is an advantage. Getting that clean air on your nose is definitely an advantage. And so that's going to push drivers to race harder to get their car in the front. So once they get in the lead, they can increase the lead. With Charlotte, there's so many variables with Charlotte, being a quad oval instead of a tri-oval. The corner speeds at Charlotte are just tremendous. I mean, those guys are honking it through corners, and it shows on the track because the majority of the passing is done coming off a corner or driving in harder than the next guy and out-braking him in the corner, but they don't use that much brake at Charlotte, so that's not a good term. But it's just so much, that makes Charlotte different than all the other tracks. One of the things that I've always thought makes it different is the way the track temperature changes. And I've often wondered if the track temperature changes are related to the fact that if you look at an overhead shot of the Charlotte Motor Speedway property, you can see it's built on a crater. It said that it was built on top of an inactive volcano. And that's the reason the infield was shaped the way it was. There was so much rock that had to be moved there and everything. And I wonder if that ground effect affects the track temperature as it cools off. But it's just so much more of a driver's track than, say, Atlanta or Las Vegas or something like that. You've really got to be on your game to run good there. And if you are on your game, you will run good there. When I was working with Tim Richmond, Tim's line around turns 3 and 4 was to slap the tail end of the car against the wall coming off 4 to straighten it back up to where he could get a straight shot through the quad oval on the front stretch. We used to put 2x4s in the rear part of the quarter panel by the fuel cell between the chassis and the bars there and the sheet metal, so it would kind of hold the sheet metal out as he banged through the corners lap after lap. But sooner or later, the wood would crumble and give up, but it wouldn't bend the frame or bend the bars like it would if the wood wasn't there. So we did what we could to accommodate, Tim, and Tim would just drive the hell out of that track. And, to me, it was always exciting just to show up and be able to watch him run. But you get drivers like that are really race car drivers. People like Earnhardt Sr., who could take a fifth-place car and win a race with it. That brings out that type of driver at Charlotte. And I think this coming Sunday with the 600, it's going to be another great show. It's going to have a lot of possibilities. You're starting at the daytime. going into the nighttime, you're dealing with a fairly unused low aero package now, which should shake things up quite a bit. So it's got a lot going for it. I used to not kind of look forward to it because it was such a long race and it gets boring in the middle, but I think it's going to be a lot better race this weekend. And if they hold the package the way it is, it's going to be a good race for a while to come.
Now speaking of Kyle Larson, and speaking of this package, and it kind of putting it back into the driver's hand, is this why we're starting to see Kyle Larson? It seemed like the end of last year, Chip Ganassi and both of the drivers started doing good in the chase, and we've seen Kyle Larson kind of be a little bit more consistently up front and be a little bit more competitive than we maybe had seen in his sophomore season and maybe even his third season. I can't remember what season he's in at this point, versus his rookie season. You know, he came out of rookie season, everybody was all about some Kyle Larson. You know, expected him to win one his rookie year, and I think that the bar was set a little too high for what reality really was. Talented driver, a team that was still kind of going in the right direction. You know, they made some changes, and now here we are, a couple years into his career, maybe 3 or 4 at this point. But this low package, or this low force package, and this package in specific that is supposed to put the race back into the driver's hand, we all know that Kyle Larson can drive. Is this a package that is kind of more of an advantage for someone like Kyle Larson, who is an actual driver, versus some of these other drivers that have kind of faked their way through the motion? I'm not gonna say they're not drivers. Obviously, you got to be amongst the best to be 40, one of the 40 out there. But I have drivers that are drivers, and I have drivers that, yeah, you kind of a part of the system that the cars were treated equal. NASCAR was trying to put a product out there that was just as even as possible, and you kind of went through the motions. Now it's more of the drivers got to learn how to drive these cars, and I think we're starting to see a little bit more of a separation on who are truly the drivers and those who kind of just made it through the system.
Yeah, the thing about Kyle Larson more than anything to me is he's just probably getting comfortable in the situation he's in. I think in previous seasons he was tentative about how he raced other drivers. And, you know, not scared to wreck, but maybe worried that wrecking too much might affect his job security or something like that. I think he's come to terms with all that, and the effects to me are showing. I think it was last year, I believe, no, it was the year before, where him and, you know, he let Ryan Newman go by him at Phoenix during the chase and earn a spot in there and not do anything about it, you know, let him go and all that, give him room. Whereas Saturday night or Saturday afternoon, he showed Chase Elliott a totally different side, and that side was, no, I'm not going to let you by. You're going to have to outrace me. So I think a lot of it's his attitude has changed. He's more comfortable in the car now. He's more comfortable taking chances and making decisions on how he wants to race. And I think that's the biggest improvement he's showing. Of course, the low downforce package is going to favor him and pretty much any other driver that started out racing on dirt, because you don't get the same amount of downforce there. Non-wing sprint cars don't have that kind of downforce, so you really have to drive them. And I think that's another asset for Kyle Larson, the way he came up racing and everything. And I just think it's all coming together for him now. And he's got a real positive attitude about what he can do.
Now, I know that we've had this conversation about the rookies. Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, Chris Buescher this year. And we give, or at least gave, a lot of credit to what we were seeing out of Ryan Blaney and Chase Elliott earlier in the season due to the product they were in. You got Ryan Blaney, even over in the Wood brothers, still affiliated with Penske and what they have going on. And, of course, Chase Elliott being in the 24 Hendrick Motorsports car. And, of course, that makes life a lot easier when you have one of the best cars you could possibly have underneath you, and you're getting to drive versus where Chris Buescher, of course, is sitting right now in a lower funded and not as high quality team. Are we starting to possibly have different opinions when it comes to Chase Elliott and Ryan Blaney, where we're starting to see them on the track do things that, okay, yes, they might be in better quality cars, but they're doing things that, regardless what car they're in, they're impressive. Watching him and Kyle Larson, to me, especially that first showdown, and it got Kyle Larson into the All-Star race, that regardless what kind of product that Chase Elliott was in, to be able to hold on to that and him put on the performance that he did, not only that, and to include later on in the race was he got voted in with Danica on the All-Star, and we're going to talk about that in a second. Should our opinions start changing about these two drivers? Because regardless of the product they're in, they're consistently up there, and it seems that every week they are consistently showing that maybe it's not just the product they're in. Maybe there's more to Ryan Blaney and Chase Elliott.
No, I think if they didn't perform, I would be wondering. I mean, comparing those two to Chris Buescher, do you know who Chris Buescher's father is? Me neither. You know who Chase Elliott's daddy is, and you know who Ryan Blaney's daddy is. They're two very good racers. So there's got to be something inherited there just from being around people like that all your life and growing up that way. And they've had the best equipment growing up that way. And I'm sure Chris Buescher did too, but now there's a definite gap in the equipment that Blaney and Elliott have as compared to Chris Buescher, and suddenly, Chris Buescher's not as good as they are. It kind of leads you back to that age-old question, well, how would Chase Elliott run in Chris Buescher's car, and how would Chris Buescher run in the 24 car? I mean, I don't, it would kind of be expected of Chase Elliott and Ryan Blaney to run good just because of their backgrounds and the opportunities that has afforded them, as opposed to Chris Buescher or the other contenders for the Rookie of the Year. I'm just not sold on the Chase Elliott greatness yet. I think he's overhyped. I don't see anything really that's pushed me to believe that he's that great a driver. To me, he's just a driver that has had great opportunities in the past and great opportunities that have gotten him where he is now. So I'm still waiting on him to show me something racing other than just finishing where it's expected to finish with that quality of car.
Now, our two fan vote-ins were Chase Elliott and Danica Patrick. And, of course, as I didn't go into great detail on your group, but, of course, that drew up a whole can of worms on Danica once again and getting voted in. They're fan favorites. One, they're not put into the race because they are the best drivers out there, and I think part of that gets misconstrued. I think people, Danica why is she getting voted in? It's unpopular. Why is Dale Jr. the most popular driver every year? He's never done anything to have a reason to be the most popular driver every single year. He's never won a championship. Yes, I'll give him credit over the last 3 or 4 years. He's gotten extremely better. That 88 team has gotten extremely better. And if they keep moving in the direction they are moving in or have been moving in, I think this year is a little bit different. I might eat my words one day, and Dale Jr. might win a championship. I don't think it'll ever happen, but I might end up eating my words one day. But doesn't mean that he's deserving to be the most popular driver. One movie back, but let me backtrack. That does, nothing he's done on the track has made him be, the reason why he should be most popular driver. And I think people don't. I don't know. I think it's funny that people have no problem with him being the most popular driver, even though year in and year out he's not been the best performer out there. But they have a problem with Danica being the most popular driver, or at least voted into the All-Star race. And they go straight to what she has done or not accomplished on the track. And I think that you have a lot of fans out there that are very hypocritical when it comes to that, because all in all, it's pretty much the same thing. Most popular driver being voted in, basically being the most voted or most popular driver that is not in that race and get voted in, is kind of the same thing to me. So I kind of get amused by how fans treat the two things differently, yet they're kind of the same. What was your thought on Chase and Danica getting voted in, and how many different followers or members of your group did you have to kind of set straight with that whole argument?
Oh God, we had a post about that in NASCAR and other racing Facebook group today too, and the big question was, why should Danica be in the All-Star race? What has she done to deserve this? But let me tell you what she's done. She puts asses in the seat.
Mm-hmm.
She has a lot more fans than she has haters.
Mm-hmm.
She brings a lot of female fans to the races. Females 18 to 34, that is the most popular demographic in advertising. That is the people that have money and spend money for their families, and that's who the networks want to court. That's who NASCAR wants to court. And who is doing that better than Danica Patrick? It's not a vote-in for the most deserving driver or for the best driver. It's a fan vote. It's a popularity contest. So they vote her in, and she needs to be in there. I mean, people hate to admit this, but she has done a lot for NASCAR racing. Not because she wins races, but a lot of the other stuff that she does. And she's become a very visible driver in NASCAR. I mean, she's all over the place. And what's wrong with that? I mean, I'm sorry if your favorite driver doesn't get all those TV commercials and he's not as well-spoken or he doesn't look as good as Danica does. I mean, so what? Face the facts. She's good for the sport. Chase Elliott's a fan favorite simply because of who his daddy is. His daddy was NASCAR's most popular driver year in and year out, more than Dale Jr. has been lately. I mean, Bill Elliott was the premier fan favorite when he was running. So, of course, some of that's going to carry over, just like Junior's being a fan favorite has a lot to do with who his daddy was. You can't get around this. If you want to vote the best driver that didn't make the show in, it can't be a fan vote. It's got to be a driver vote or a crew chief vote. Excuse me. It's got to be voted on by them, people that know racing, that are involved in racing, as opposed to a casual fan who watches from his couch on Sunday and pulls for who he likes. So I think that's the way it should go to me. If you want to put somebody in that deserves to be in, I say deserves in quotation marks, it doesn't need to be voted on by the fans, because then it's just a popularity contest again.
Oh yeah, and I got a message talking about women in Danica. We have female Super Pro truck drivers that hate it when Danica gets knocked out of the race. What Danica's done for the sport is second to none. Like it, to put it this way. It's gotten to the point now that we don't even really, I'm not going to say acknowledge, but we don't even really think about the fact that there's a female driver out there on the track. It has become so acceptable, and I know that she's not pioneered. I know she's not the first female driver to be out there, even in the Sprint Cup Series. But she has helped open that door to make it so much more acceptable that we're at a point now in the sport that, honestly, other than the fact that I'm a Danica fan, I don't think about that Danica is out there. I don't think about that Danica is a female driver. Yes, I'll admit sometimes it does get to be overwhelming sometimes. The coverage that she gets and the constant talk about her sometimes does. But they do that with so many different drivers at different times. We get to certain tracks, it's all about Jimmie Johnson, and we're spending the whole race talking about Jimmie Johnson. Or we get to a certain track and it's all about Dale Jr., especially when we get to these restrictor plate races. So every driver, there's a moment that it gets to be overbearing and you get tired of hearing about a certain driver. Regardless if she ever wins a race or not, what she has helped done for this sport when it comes to women, when it comes to the fan support and the demographics, like you said, it is second to none. There's hardly been any other driver that has been so influential, regardless if they win a race or not, to what Danica has done to this sport, that it don't matter if she, like I said, ever wins a race, and if she is statistically the best person to be out there in the All-Star race. What she has done for the sport, there's no reason that she is not an All-Star every single year.
Exactly. The best comparison I can think of is compare Danica to Jennifer Lawrence, the actress. Jennifer Lawrence starred in the first Hunger Games movie, and young ladies went to see that movie and saw her character Katniss kicking ass with a bow and arrow. Archery sales shot up. Archery became a giant sport for young ladies in high school and stuff. And Jennifer Lawrence's character kicked that off. And that's the same thing Danica has done. Danica showed up in racing, and all of a sudden, if nothing else, go to my Facebook group page and look at how many female drivers we have now as members. Through all levels of racing, the amount of female drivers has increased. And it hadn't increased because of Dale Earnhardt Jr. or Chase Elliott. It's increased because of Danica Patrick's presence in NASCAR. And that's what she's brought to the sport. That's what she's done for the sport. And I'm sure she doesn't mind being known for that. Mm-hmm. I mean, she does, back again to what people are saying, what has she done? She does her job. Yep. She does what she's paid to do. She's not paid to win races. She's paid to promote Nature's Bakery, to keep Nature's Bakery in the news, on television, in the public eye. That's her job. That's her number one job. Doesn't matter if she wins the race or she crashes out. If she crashes out, Nature's Bakery gets shown over and over again on replays. It's shown on her driver's uniform when they interview her to ask her what happened and all that. And it was the same thing with GoDaddy. I mean, they get a ton of exposure from her because of her, and that's what they're paying the money for. That's what they're trying to get out of it. Winning races is secondary to these sponsors. But to the casual couch fan, it's the only thing that matters in racing. You're only as good as your last victory.
I mean, and speak on that. You think that Danica has better things to do with her life than, making sure that she's being photographed or taking selfies while she's doing all the different yoga positions and everything else she was doing all off season? All that was doing was building her brand to make sure that her sponsors are well recognized because they sponsor Danica Patrick, and just one more opportunity to have herself exposed and her sponsors exposed. I'm sure that her boat trips and she's doing this yoga different positions for yoga and the selfies and people taking pictures. I'm sure she would like to have a private life. Everybody wants to have their moments to themselves, especially in the off season, especially if you're an athlete or any kind of artist or anything out there. So I mean that just one more example. It's not that she's getting paid to win races. It's getting to promote her brand, herself. That in the end results promotes Nature's Bread and GoDaddy. Do you think she necessarily wanted to do all the commercials that she was involved with when it came to GoDaddy? No, but that's what she got paid to do. Not to necessarily finish first, but to put on a product. So she happens to be a gorgeous lady. You know, it's just the way it is. They did the same thing with Casey Kane, and it blows my mind that so fans are so critical with that as well. That was a Nationwide or whatever he was originally with, and they kept having those girls in the car dreaming about Casey Kane, and it would wreck their car. They were using Casey Kane's look, not what he was doing on the track, but based off what his looks are. They could have used any driver to be in those commercials, but they picked one that the girls found to be attractive and a hottie in their opinion. And the same thing. And we're not saying that Danica, pioneered this, and Danica should get all this credit. It's been female drivers throughout NASCAR's history that's been out there. Hell, my father crew chief, I think she was an Italian lady, back in 77 or 78. It was only a couple races, and he was an outside tire changer, but it's not the first lady to be in this sport, and there's been many since, and there's going to be many more after Danica. But what she has done, she's made this much more acceptable. It's made it easier for sponsors to be willing. The fact that she's been there year in and year out, full seasons and multiple seasons, that is those things right there. That what adds up and is making it and is going to make it easier for your next woman superstar to come across the sport. Like I said, all the other drivers in the past that made it to the Xfinity Series or made it to the Sprint Cup Series, it's only been a race here or a race there or a season here. Nobody up to this date has seen the run that Danica has made and has had over at Stewart-Haas Racing. And regardless if you like her or not, this has opened an opportunity. Just one more. We got the Drive for Diversity program that's has helped open up the opportunity for multiple nationalities to have their opportunity. Danica has kind of been that drive for diversity for women. She might not be impressing anybody with what she's done on the track. I don't know why, because it takes a lot of talent to be out there, especially with her physical makeup. She's not a guy. She's a very tiny girl at that. I was blown away when I stood next to her when I was at Bristol. Very tiny girl, but what she has done to open up the opportunity and the doors for so many young ladies and give them something to dream about, a role model. It's not only the fact that she's opened these doors and been there year in and year out, but she gives these young ladies something to shoot for. And when you got a goal and you got somebody you want to be like and a role model, that gives these young ladies something to shoot for that they didn't have before. Oh yeah, this driver been out there a couple races, or Jennifer Jo Cobb has made it to the Truck Series, and Johanna Long made it to the Xfinity Series, but nothing really to hold on to, nothing to really hope for. It was like that was the ceiling right there. Now Danica's opened up that ceiling, and now the sky's the limit. Now you're a female, you have all these opportunities that really wasn't there before. There's no ceiling cap. Sponsors are willing to throw money out there now that they have seen what these female drivers can do, and it's changed the sport, and it's changed the opportunity for so many people.
Yes, definitely so. The thing, about Danica, people say, well, Jennifer Jo Cobb and Johanna Long, should have her ride. They're more deserving, yada, yada, yada. But look back at the history of the three of them. Danica never accepted a low-level ride. I mean, when she moved to IndyCar, she moved in with a top-notch team. Wasn't because of her name or anything, but she waited for the right deal. Same thing with Cup racing. You know, I'm sure she had other offers before Stewart Haas, but she waited for the best deal.
Yep.
Jennifer Jo Cobb and Joanna Long, and especially Joanna Long, have spent the majority of their racing career chasing dreams, you know, signing on with a team that's very unknown, very low funded, and expecting to do great and show great in that. And it might happen once in a blue moon, but it's not going to happen consistently.
Yeah.
And it's not going to build your reputation up any. The doors that Danica's kicked open have really made a change on the sport. The next door I see getting kicked open is by Daniel Suarez. Daniel Suarez starts running real good and winning races. I believe the Mexican drivers will start coming out of the woodwork. Other nationality drivers will start coming out of the woodwork. It'll be another good thing for NASCAR. I mean, and there's people that are going to complain, well, you know, the reason he's got that area still is because he's Mexican or something like that. But it doesn't matter the why so much as to what he's going to cause to happen, what Danica has caused to happen. And I'm really interested to see what's going to happen after Daniel Suarez wins a couple of races, how fast that diversity program is going to fill up.
I agree. I think another driver out there that'll be very impactful, especially if he can find a way into victory lane in the Sprint Cup Series, and that would be Bubba Wallace. I think that that would open the door for a lot of opportunities as well. God, it was something.
Yep.
There was something else that you said that I wanted to comment.
Well, let me expound on that. You know, people say, you know, Bubba Wallace gets held back because he's black. He doesn't get the same opportunities as the others get. And it's true. But not because so much he's black. It's because if you're a race car driver, how do you get started in racing? 99 times out of 100, it's because your dad, your uncle, your grandfather, somebody in your family had a race car already, and so the seat was there for you to inherit. There's very few blacks that race circle tracks. I'm not trying to be racist or anything, but there's a ton of blacks in drag racing, but there's not many in circle track racing. That's where they concentrate, and that's where more of the opportunities are. You know, once somebody like Bubba Wallace gets a chance in quality equipment to prove the driver he is, well, you know, he's going to take off. He's already moving up the ladder at Roush Fenway. So a lot of it has to do, again, like Chase Elliott and Dale Earnhardt, you know, who your family is. So it applies to all different types of scenario, but it is definitely an advantage in racing.
And I agree. I was trying to think about the question I was going to ask while you were talking. I never did think about what I was going to ask or the comments I'm going to come back with. But, you know, I agree. And a lot of people don't think about that. You know, I absolutely, right when you said it, and when you was talking about father and grandfather, you know, I agree. Like, it's if the opportunity is never there and there's never really an interest when you're young. I mean, different ethnic backgrounds, just different. Even the same race, even the Caucasian. If you don't grow up in that kind of background, you have no interest in. And there's not a lot. There's a lot of people out there that are white that have absolutely no interest in NASCAR at all. That's just because their father or their father's father and so forth back had no interest in it, and they just what you grow up into and what your family background is has got a lot to do with it. And unfortunately, for a long time, there was not a lot of diversity in NASCAR. And a lot of it, unfortunately, way back in the day, a lot of it had to do with it was a race car. But as we've gotten away from that a long time ago, it was just more about the fact that there was just not a lot of background or a lot of, I don't want to use the word background, but I guess a lot of these different races, their background had nothing to do with NASCAR, so there was not a lot of interest. If nobody in your family is interested in a particular sport, 9 out of 10 times you're not going to care for that sport. I grew up in a household that NASCAR and football were the two sports to watch. That's why my center of attention is NASCAR and the NFL. Yes, I've grown to like the NBA, and I love the MLB, but those are third and fourth and fifth and so forth down. What I grew up into and what we played had to do with the fact that my father was part of a race team and was part of NASCAR at one point in time. The reason our background in football is because that's what we watched every Sunday, and that's what our family got us into and what we played when we was little. And so I completely I completely agree with you that it's not so much the fact that he's black, but yet at the same time it does, because that's what he grew up into. And until we get into a generation, it's kind of the same with the Danica. Until we get finally far enough advanced that families start becoming NASCAR fans or getting involved with NASCAR, it's going to be limited on what races are in the sport and what females in there. But now we got these people knocking down these doors, and it is becoming more of a thing. It's surely going to change, and Daniel Suave is another prime example. It's not something that the Hispanic community has necessarily been involved with or cared to watch. But now that we're starting to see these barriers being knocked down, starting to see races being run in Mexico, eventually it's going to be there's going to be a day that we're going to see a field that I would say is only maybe 75, at most 75% of a white field, and I think that we're going to see at least at a minimum 10, if not 15, 20 drivers that is going to be of other ethnic background or be females out there.
Yeah, what you just mentioned is very true. I mean, this is why you have a hard time getting NASCAR racing fans to go to their local short track. They don't know any of the drivers. They don't have a favorite driver. They don't know anybody to pull for. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason that the Hispanic and black audiences aren't as big as they are. Inner city kids aren't exposed to racing the way redneck kids are. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just not part of their daily routine or part of their daily function or whatever. And that hurts. And then when you suddenly want to watch it, you don't have a favorite or anything. Mm-hmm. It's like I watched part of the NBA playoffs, but a lot of the games I haven't watched simply because I don't know much about either team, don't have a favorite player playing and stuff like that. It keeps me from watching, and I think that's what keeps a lot of people out of racing. It's that same deal.
And you brought up one point that I want to talk about, and then I was reminded, and Mike kind of reminded me where I was wanting to go with the other point finally. Even in the Caucasian community, being the city life and the country life also, to me, kind of dictates on whether or not you're a NASCAR fan or not. Because it's easy in the city life to go down to the basketball court, or go to the ice rink, or go to all these facilities that you don't have a racetrack in the middle of your city. So it's not always accessible or easy. Hell, sometimes you got to travel hours or at least quite a few minutes to the nearest, even local track in some places. And basketball courts usually right around every corner, or a bowling alley right around every corner. So you have that accessibility, and I think that's part of why we have different backgrounds, regardless of it's race or not, that dictate on whether or not you're going to be a race car driver or not. But also, and like you brought up the point when we're talking about Danica, would we have our Amber Balkans we've had on the show? Would we have our Hannah Houses, our Decker cousins, Sarah Cornett Ching in the ARCA series? I think she's in the K&N Pro series at this point right now. But all these other female drivers that we have out there, would we even have these drivers out there? Would they still have the same opportunities and the same rides, even with the driver diversity program, even with as successful a driver they are? Would these race teams and would these sponsors be willing to take those chances? Because we've had many female drivers out there that have been very talented, probably 10 times as talented as Danica, that never got the opportunity because it wasn't one of those things that was, in quotes, acceptable or part of the norm, I guess. But because Danica has kind of set the standard, I'm not going to say set the standard, but has opened the opportunity, opened these doors, and has been there year in and year out. And sponsors, I think, now are looking at, okay, well, who is the next Danica? I think even more so, I think that is what is probably helping these females right now, is who is going to be the next Danica, or better yet, who is going to be better than who's going to top Danica. And I think that there's going to be rides open up just for that. You're going to want, as a team owner or a sponsor, you're going to want to have your name on that driver that is not only the next Danica, but is better than Danica, and is going to put that car in the victory lane, or is going to take NASCAR by storm. And I think that is also another opportunity that she has opened up, because you want to be that team owner that signs that female driver that is the first to make history, because you're always going to be known. Danica, just say Danica won. Well, Danica was driving the number 10 Nature's Bred car for Stewart-Haas Racing. That is always going to be stamped in history. That picture is going to be in Hall of Fame. That team owner, Stewart-Haas Racing, that sponsor, everything is always going to be linked together permanently. So I think that is also an opportunity that she's opening up. Is those team owners and those sponsors, they want to be that next. They want to have an opportunity like Nike and sign the next be part of Tiger Woods' career. The Williams sisters out there in playing tennis. There's many groundbreaking athletes out there, and you're going to want to be part of that movement. And I think that's another thing that she has done.
Yeah, definitely so. And like what you said earlier, there is other female drivers that were better than Danica that haven't gotten the opportunities that Danica's had. Mm-hmm. Just like there's plenty of male drivers whose skill level could be higher than Jimmie Johnson's, but they haven't got the opportunity Jimmie Johnson's got. And it just goes to prove that it doesn't matter how talented you are, there's some luck involved.
Oh, yeah.
The stars have got to line up for you to get that major opportunity. And I'm a prime example of that. The only reason I got into racing was because I was at the right place at the right time. I was working for Rick Hendrick in Hendrick Automotive. I was a parts and service controller in the car dealerships, had never worked on a race team or anything. But I heard a rumor that Rick was building a stock car, planning on running some NASCAR races. So the next opportunity I saw him, I asked him if I could get involved in that. And I turned out to be the fourth person hired at Hendrick Motorsports. And that's how I got my start in racing, just being in the right place at the right time. Not because I was such the great tire engineering crew chief that I am now. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And a lot of times, that's what it takes to put you on the top level.
Oh, yeah. Most definitely. Since we turned this into a Danica and everything else, part of the show.
There just wasn't much to talk about from the race yesterday as far as the racing went.
Was there, speaking of which, was there anything else that we missed that you wanted to key in on when it came to this weekend in NASCAR, or more specifically the All-Star race?
Yep. The biggest problem I had with the race was the final segment, where NASCAR wanted to put cars on old tires ahead of cars on sticker tires. I mean, that's going to create some racing trying to get past those slower cars. But the excitement it's going to create is due to the wreck that people were anticipating. Not the great three-wide move or something like that. I think it was done purely to inject the wrong kind of excitement in the last quarter. I don't like that. I feel like they're setting up a crash by doing that. I mean, to me, it just doesn't seem right. It's not the way I would go, you know. I would find other ways to make the race exciting other than to stage a wreck or a possible wreck.
Outside of possibly that being their motives, trying to stage a wreck, why would NASCAR, especially with this downforce package and the tires that they're having Goodyear bring, which are intended to fall off so it becomes, you know, a racer's race versus it being about tires, why would they intentionally put the field, half the field at that, it only ended up being two cars, but potentially could have been half the field at a disadvantage, knowing that these tires were designed to fall off?
Well, you know, it's kind of the same way it is with a lot of short track racing, where you qualify and then they invert so many of the top qualifiers so that the top qualifiers are back in the pack and have to work their way up through traffic. You're dealing with cars trying to beat cars that are inferior to the car coming up through the pack, and I think it's done simply. I don't think they really want big crashes, but they want to see some spins and some beating and banging and stuff like that. And to me, that's staged. That's put on racing to me.
And that was one of the things we talked about last week. I just didn't understand, knowing that these tires that they've been coming with are designed to fall off, why would you put half the field at a disadvantage? Yes, they're up front, but we knew that the new tires versus the old tires were going to show, you know, an extreme difference. And, you know, those two cars up front really didn't have a shot when you had 11 cars behind them that had brand new tires. And I just didn't like it. If it was their decision, yes, I would have been fine with it, but it was mandatory that 11 did get four tires, the rest of them were not allowed, and I just didn't like that. Even when we were talking about this last week throughout the different shows that I did, I don't know, I had a problem with that, because, like I said, those tires were designed to fall off, and not only, you know, it makes it, you know, somewhat interesting because these guys got to get around the cars, and I understand that's the way it was when we went to Kilcare and Shady Bone, Ohio. You know, the slower cars ran up front, the faster qualifiers started in the back and had to work their way through the field. But that's because they were legitimately slower, not because the track and that, you know, particular organization said, you know what, we're going to intentionally give these cars an advantage and intentionally make these cars be at a disadvantage. It's just because they were just simply slower. I didn't like the fact that NASCAR is intentionally making half the field faster than the other half of the field and say go at it, because not only is that part of, you know, those cars were slower, but also the grip was not there. And you got cars out there 200 miles an hour. Why do you want to make it harder for these guys that are out there at these speeds and make it easier for these other guys that have, you know, better grip and everything? So I just didn't like that. It just didn't make sense to me.
Not at all. I didn't like it at all either. I mean, the bottom line is you're putting cars, like Saturday night, you had the second row of cars was at at least a second and a half faster than the front row because that's how much the tires were falling off as they wore. So you've got war tires, and then you've got new tires that are a second and a half or so faster. I mean, the guy on worn tires has got to get out of the grass and onto the brakes earlier than the guy with the new tires. I mean, you stand a chance of running over somebody going into a corner or running over them coming off the corner. I mean, it's just hokey. You know, you don't have to manufacture excitement to make it exciting. So why do it? That's the biggest part of the race that I don't agree with, that part of the format.
Absolutely agree. Like I said, we talked about that on multiple shows last week. It just didn't add up, especially with those tires are meant to do that. And I just felt that you were kind of screwing half the field regardless at that point. So next week, we're back at Charlotte. Never mind. I was going to say, where are we at? But I never remember where we're at. Next weekend ought to be really interesting. Not only do we got NASCAR, we got a whole weekend worth of great action, but definitely looking forward to the longest race of the year, miles-wise anyway. 600 miles at Charlotte always tends to be an interesting outcome. I think with the tire package and what we've seen this weekend, we should see very competitive racing all the way through, like you said earlier. No dull points in the middle, no taking naps, no let me go up to the store and run an errand, come back, because it's not going to get good until the end. I think we're going to see from lap 1 until lap 400. We're going to see some good racing. We're going to see some fender bending. We're going to see great strategy, especially with these tires. I think we're going to see a lot of things. I don't think with about 15 laps left we're going to see anybody not get tires if there's an opportunity, as we've seen the consequences of that. But definitely should be a fun race to watch, and definitely looking forward to be able to sit down and watch that next weekend.
Yeah, the great thing about the 600 is everybody brings their A game to the 600. Everybody, that's the race, really, that everybody really wants to perform well in and win because it's in their backyard. You know, that was, when I was racing, I would get a ton of tickets, scrounge them up for the 600 so that my friends and my family could see what I do, to see exactly what I do for work and how I prepare for the week and everything. And it's a point of pride for all these crews that are based in Mooresville and Charlotte and Huntersville and the surrounding areas. I mean, they get a chance to show off for their family and friends. Their attitude is better because they're sleeping at home. They're sleeping in their own bed instead of a motel bed that might be full of bed bugs or who knows what. They don't have to eat restaurant food. They get to eat home cooking. And unless you've been on the road and had to eat a lot of restaurant food, it's not that great after a while. It gets old pretty quick. So there's a lot surrounding the 600 from the driver, crew chief, team's point of view as to, you know, how big a deal this is, really. And to them, it's really big. I mean, it, you know, like I said to a lot of them, it's the biggest show of the year because they're in front of family and friends.
Most definitely. Well, definitely looking forward to sitting here next Monday doing this again. I'm sure we're going to have plenty to talk about after the 600. So definitely looking forward to that, and really kind of getting the second half of the regular season kind of kicked off. I kind of look at it as your it's not necessarily the halfway point, but essentially it's we're going into the second half of the season. All-Star break is kind of their break, and a fun weekend, $1 million to win, and Joey Logano, congratulations to him, and congratulations really it's all the drivers out there because one, you earned a spot in there regardless if you was voted, you raced your way in, or you were just in, you earned a spot to be there, and it's not only an honor to be there, but it also gives you a little bit of advantage over the ones that weren't there because now you know the tires, now you know the package, and there's a lot of things that they get to learn regardless of it being just a fun weekend out there. There's a lot of notes taken still. And so congratulations to all those out there. I'm looking forward to being back here next week. Steve, anything else you want to throw out there before we jump out there? Facebook group, Thursday night show. I'll throw those things out there real quick and we get out of here for the night.
All right. Twitter, look me up on at Big Sweat, the NASCAR Heartbreaker and Home Wrecker. My Facebook group, NASCAR and Other Racing. What can I say? It's great. We had a lot of fun on the race threads Saturday night. We'll have fun with the race threads this weekend, both for Indy and for Cup. So come join us. See what you're missing. It's well worth the trip. Trust me. Thursday night, right here on the 110 Nation Sports Radio Network, it's Racing with Big Sweat. I'm still waiting on confirmation from another driver, but I can tell you I have an open-wheel sprint car driver lined up. She drives in Australia, and her name is Sarah Walker. She's been on my show before. She's a very interesting lady, and something I found out since the last time she was on that I'm going to talk with her about is she is a sidecar motorcycle racer. And she's not the one sitting up in the seat steering. She's the one hanging off the sidecar about 2 inches off the track. So I want to find out, God, she's got to have balls bigger than mine to do that. And I want to find out how she got involved in it and what it's all about. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm trying to get another of the NASCAR Next drivers lined up. I'm waiting for confirmation from him. And if you want to hear more about what happened this weekend, check out my blog. It'll be up tomorrow. My blog is NASCAR Shit, Racing with Big Sweat. And I'll let you know then, some more thoughts about this past weekend and what I expect to see coming up this coming weekend. So, as I tell my doctor, check me out.
Make sure you guys stay tuned here on the 110 Nation Sports Radio Network, 9 p.m. as we got one hell of a show scheduled for you guys tonight. We got, of course, we got Shorty joining us in the studio as well, but we also got Jesse Little and, I cannot think of the other person's name, and I know I should know it off the top of my head. I thought I was going to have it pulled up already. Marnie Williams, ARCA truck driver, joining us tonight. So very excited about having both of those guests on tonight. Like I said, Shorty will be joining us in the studio as well. So make sure you guys stay around. Show kicks off at 9 a.m. So make sure you guys there. Make sure you guys check us out on Facebook, 110 Nation Sports. Also check us out on Twitter at 110 Nation as well. Steve, once again, another great night. Love having the opportunity to do this with you every Monday night.
Absolutely. It's always fun for me. I love talking about racing, and I enjoy talking about racing with you, CJ. It's a really good deal for me.
You have no idea how honored I am to have this opportunity. Just like you said, fourth employee over Hendrick Motorsports. That just wowed me. So next Monday, back here again at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure you guys tune in. Look forward to hanging out with you Thursday nights, Steve, and everybody have a great week.
See ya.